What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Quickfire Comic Chat. My name's Garrett Anderson, and this is episode 3. I got a request to do one of these today, so I've decided to have a discussion about one of my favorite comic stories ever told, and that's my man, Spawn. If you can't tell from my t-shirt and all the toys behind me, I'm a huge Spawn fan, always have been, always will be. Spawn came out in 1992 and was created by my favorite guy in all of comic books, and that's Todd McFarlane. He was the writer, the artist. Later, the series ended up getting taken over by a couple other artists and writers, and obviously got other spin-offs, and various other people took a hold of the Spawn series. But Todd McFarlane is the sole guy responsible for Spawn, and he is a badass. So, before I get any further about Spawn, there's going to be some spoilers. They're going to be minor spoilers. Pretty much first couple issues kind of spoilers. And there's no really way for me to talk about why it's probably my favorite story ever told without getting into some of those. So they are going to be minor. Don't be discouraged. I don't think it's going to ruin anything for you because honestly, it's some of the best writing and the best art, I think, ever in comic books. And that's saying a lot. So first of all, Spawn is the shit. Going into Spawn, I mean, you're talking about Wizard Magazine labeled Spawn as, I think it was the 60th cool character out of 200 characters of all time. And I believe on IGN, he was ranked 36th of the most badass comic book characters of all time. And speaking about badass, I think that's why I liked him. In the 90s, I was a young buck. I believe I picked up my first Spawn issue in 96 or so, which would have been making me around 14. Spawn, he basically shines in the dark, and basically what I mean by that is he's all rebel, right? He represented rock and roll, he represented gangster rap. I mean, he was hardcore for the time. He took comic book characters and said, you know what, we are not men flying around in spandex. We are badasses, and we can be violent, and we can be hard, and we're here to stay. And so I think that's why I was turned on to him when I first saw Spawn issue number 1, which is on my shirt. So, getting into more of my love of Spawn, I have a huge comic book collection. I've got 2 boxes. 2 of these. I'm not picking up the other one, sorry, but it's right there. Completely devoted to Spawn. There are currently over 280 issues and counting in the Spawn series, not to mention a bazillion other spinoffs, like I said prior. And so Spawn's here to stay. So if you haven't considered reading Spawn, I highly recommend doing so. Let me put this down. So, talking about the story of Spawn and why it's so epic. Spawn didn't just decide to show up one day and save humanity. In fact, he doesn't even want his powers. His powers are a curse. His story is about sadness, betrayal, drama. It is not healthy. So let's get into that. So basically, Spawn was once a man, a human being. He was a super soldier. His name was Al Simmons, and he was the government's #1 man to get shit done. When you needed a soldier to go in, blow shit up, not take names, and do it covertly without anybody else knowing, you called Al Simmons. Al Simmons was a badass. He was not a good person. He was a super soldier, and he was working for the government, but was he a good person? No. He was just simply a super soldier badass. Basically what happens over time is Al Simmons kind of gets a lot of knowledge, right? The government's hiring him to do all these classified inside jobs. The government decides, you know what? We're going to have to kill Al Simmons. And so basically, Al Simmons, Spawn, is actually betrayed by his own boss. And he's killed. They send somebody to kill him. I'm not going to tell you who because that's also a big spoiler. But it's an intricate part of the story. So here's where it gets interesting. So Al Simmons, Spawn, dies. And he leaves behind his wife, Wanda, and his unborn child, Cyan. Imagine dying and leaving behind your pregnant wife. Like, holy crap. Like, that is so drama to me. That's just like, oh God, it quivers. I'm married. Like, just the thought of leaving my wife behind at such an early age, that's fucked. I mean, that is not an okay situation. yeah, I mean, it's just completely sad. So, as Alcemon dies, he's going to hell. And I'm not a religious person, but there's a lot of religion that plays into this story, but that's why this story even gets more epic. This is just the beginning. Just stay with me here. So Alcemon gets sent to hell, right? And he meets a devil. Not the devil, but none other than Malebolgia. Or Malebolgia, however you want to say it. I never really quite figured it out. Anyway, this is a high-ranking devil in the depths of hell. And he offers Mr. Alcemon a deal. He says, I'll let you see your wife and unborn child again, but your soul is mine. Alcemon, in his grief and his drama, has no other choice except for to make this deal with this devil. Devil says, all right, you got it, brother. Sends him back up to Earth. However, he didn't give him all the details, as you would expect a devil not to be. Instead of this younger, good-looking African-American male that was super strong and a badass, he sends him back as a nasty, crusty, burnt, just of a man. Like, he's just completely foul. There's nothing good looking about him now. I mean, he's got maggots and scars and burns. He's completely destroyed. So the devil said he'd let him see his wife and child, but he didn't tell him how he was going to do it. So this is where the plot thickens even further. And this is not in-game spoilers. You learn all this really, really early on. So once again, don't be scared. I'm not getting too crazy on spoiler stuff here. So now that he's back, he discovers that he has these certain powers. And a lot of these powers are coming from this specific outfit, which he's wearing. You can kind of see this cape and these chains and this green energy. So here's the devil's plan. The only reason why the devil decided to let Alcemon, Spawn, go back to Earth to see his wife and child is because he's training Spawn, the spawn of Satan, to become one of his soldiers in the epic battle against heaven. So this isn't a fucking story about Alcemon and his drama, even though that's really, really cool. This is a story about heaven versus hell. Like, I don't even know how you even get, like, more epic than that. I'm not even religious, and if you can tell me a bigger battle than there would be against heaven versus hell, go ahead, man. Leave it in the comics, because I don't know. There's no other battle. Even Secret Wars this, Secret Wars that, whatever. Freaking heaven versus hell? That is the ultimate battle of all time. Anyway, I digress. So, now that Alcemon's Spawn is on Earth, and he has these powers, he discovers that these powers have a limitation. And he's basically told from various other characters throughout his travels that he's got a limit on these powers. Once he uses all his powers, he's going to be sent back to hell and, well, be a spawn of Satan in Satan's army. So he's got to be very precious when he uses this stuff. He can't just be, just using these powers at will. There's literally a clock. As he uses the powers, they go down all the way. He dies, goes back to hell. Now he's, devil's servant forever. So, it's very dramatic. And so, here's the deal. He's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's an anti-hero. He, has to make good choices and bad choices. You can tell he's kind of a good guy because he loves his wife and he has a child and he loves his family, but he also doesn't give a shit. I mean, he killed people for a living, and not all these people were quote-unquote, bad people. He was a mass murderer in some cases. And so that's it. That's your basic story about it. And so without going into further detail about it, I'll get more spoilery if I go any further, is what I'm saying. But that's your overarching main deadline right there, is you have this guy who has probably suffered the worst tragedy ever, losing your wife and child, going down to hell. Now you're stuck as being a servant of the devil. Just talking about a little bit more of the side stuff about Spawn, is Spawn, as far as a comic book, is really responsible for a lot of other cool characters along the way. He meets, agents of heaven, Angela, who also has her own comic series. Angela is dude, the mini series on Angela is some of the coolest shit you've ever seen, and it's all because of Spawn and Todd McFarlane. So you have those guys. You have the famous detectives, the super fatty, Sam and Twitch. Sam, Twitch. These guys are so funny. They definitely play an intricate role in the Spawn universe, and also have their own comic series. The next big guy would be the Violator. And man, the Violator is one of the most foul pieces of crap you've ever seen. I mean, just look at that face. Violator is awesome. He is just the worst enemy of types. He probably is one of my favorite villains ever created. I can't say enough about Spawn. I mean, and they're still making issues. I mean, my final thoughts on Spawn is... So I'm 33 now, and I probably picked up... Well, so I was 14 when I picked up the book. I don't even know how many years that is. But there's just no way that I will ever stop being a Spawn fan. And you should be too. At least give it a shot. If you can pick up those, single issues for really cheap, at your, comic book store and back issues, do it. Because there is nothing wrong with being late to the game. I'm still late to the game on a million different comics. So, that's it. That was Quickfire Comic Chat. Or Talk. My name's Garrett. That was episode 3. I love you guys. I'll see you guys. Willie, shout out. If you haven't already, join the Kinda Funny comic book group. Please like, please subscribe. You guys all have a wonderful Tuesday. Peace.